What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, and welcome to another episode of Deck of the Week, the Pojo-inspired series where we take a look at a deck that's either a new meta contender, an upcoming rogue deck, or maybe something that's just completely off the wall that would never otherwise be seen. So if you haven't checked out the other previous episodes, I'd highly recommend it. The first one, I think, was a Penguin deck of all things, and the second deck was actually a Gravekeeper deck, which actually took the place of this deck because it was topical and I wanted to talk about it. So those were both really cool, but now we're going to be going more into the roguish tier and decks that are actually moving their way up the meta totem pole, and that deck is Lyrilusc Tribrigade. This deck is so cool. This deck is so awesome, and I'm super happy to share this with you guys. This isn't something that's brand new. If you're paying any attention over to the OCG, or you've been paying attention to any of the recent Yu-Gi-Oh! Extravaganzas or any large online tournaments taking place, you may have noticed this deck for yourself. So I wanted to feature it today because I just think this deck is so cool. This deck can do so many incredible things, and I think one of the best parts about it is it's actually a budget deck. You could probably get this entire deck made in extra for like 100 to 150 bucks, no problem. Most of the cards are so low rarity. I think the most expensive thing in here is like the fractals and then maybe like Zeus. And other than that, everything else in here is so affordable. I guess like Ash Blossoms are like 10 bucks a piece. But you know, aside from that, I mean, everything else is just ridiculously inexpensive. So let's go ahead and talk about what this deck does. So the reason you want to play this deck is because the main combo ultimately ends on this monster right here, Mr. Cimoooooooo, Bird of Sovereignty, and then you're able to special summon out a copy of Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds, and by doing so, you effectively lock your opponent out of being able to play the game. Think of the top meta decks right now. It's Virtual World, Drytron, as well as Eldritch. Without being able to special summon, most decks just concede to this, and you are going to be able to win games left and right, and if you're able to play through some disruption as well, then that's also pretty nice. So let's get into the crux of what makes this deck so powerful. One of the reasons is Tri-brigade Fractal. Now, all of the Tri-brigade monsters have the ability while they're on the field that you can banish any number of Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast monsters from your graveyard to cheat out a Link monster that has equal rating, equal to the number of monsters that were banished, that is also a Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast itself. Now, you're also locked into only being able to use those types of monsters as Link material for the rest of the turn, but that's not a big deal considering that's pretty much all we're playing. So Fractal is probably the heart and soul of this deck because it's really what gets it all going. You can send this card from either your hand or field to the graveyard to send a level 3 or lower Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast monster from your deck to the graveyard. Targets include something like Nerval, which is a Winged Beast level 1, which actually matters for this deck, and when you send him, you are then able to add any Tri-brigade monster from your deck to your hand. You can also send the newly released Tri-brigade kit, which when it's sent to the graveyard, you can also Foolish Burial another Tri-brigade card, but we'll get to that a little bit later. There's also Ceres, we'll talk about him in a bit as well, but this is what gets everything going, and if you can get to Fractal, which is why you want to play copies of Tenki since this is a Beast Warrior, that's exactly where you want to be. Then you have the other half of the deck being the Lyriluscs. Now the Lyriluscs are a swath of level 1 Winged Beasts, and they all have some actually very strong abilities, but they needed something to complement it to really make it powerful. Lyrilusc Cobalt Sparrow says if it's special summoned, you can add a level 1 Winged Beast monster from your deck to your hand. We have Sapphire Swallow that says if you control a Winged Beast type monster, you can special summon both this card and a level 1 Winged Beast type monster from your hand. So in this case, we can summon out the Sparrow, Sparrow can get its effect, and we can keep going. We also have Turquoise Warbler, which is one of the key combo pieces because if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if it's special summoned from your hand, you can special summon a Lyrilusc monster from your hand or graveyard. So again, it's very similar to Sapphire Swallow, but again, we want to get to that Cobalt Sparrow, and we're able to special summon all these monsters out to the field to give us a lot of Link material to work with, and that's what makes this deck so good. This deck can typically go into its main combo before even has to normal summon a lot of the time, and that makes it very difficult to deal with because even if you have interaction, if your opponent still hasn't normal summoned, that normal summon can be the key difference maker. So let's go ahead and do the card by card. This deck is by no means optimal. The ratios can be changed as you see fit. That's why I have some of the extra monsters down in the side deck. With Kit newly being released, people are figuring out new combos to work with the deck. I just wanted to incorporate it here to a minor degree, but let's just go ahead and do that card by card. So for the hand traps, we have 3 Ash Blossom. You have your 1 Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. Neither player can special summon monsters except Wind. The only deck that can really get around this restriction is Virtual World because some of the monsters in that deck are actually Wind. I think actually Shen Shen, as a matter of fact, is a Wind, so that actually is a little bit of a problem, but most of the time Stormwinds will be enough to win you the game in most instances. 3 copies of DD Crow. What's cool about this is not only is it graveyard hate for your opponent, but it's also a level 1 Winged Beast, so this card can actually be an extender in this deck if you absolutely need to use it that way. 2 copies of Kit Kinkabyo. So this is a card that hasn't seen play in forever. I mean, it's maybe since like Mystic Piper days, but this card is great because on normal summon, you can target a level 1 monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when this card leaves the field. So this is like your Wolf Bark of sorts. This is a way just to get another monster onto the field, and so being able to have that sort of utility is fantastic. Again, we have 3 copies of the Cobalt Sparrow, 3 copies of the Sapphire Swallow, and 3 copies of the Turquoise Warbler. We also have 1 copy of Mist Valley Apex Avian. What's great about Bird of Sovereignty is that once you summon the barrier statue during the end of your turn, during the end of your opponent's turn, if they weren't able to out the sovereignty, you're able to summon Mist Valley Apex Avian, and then you are basically just going to win the game from this point, because then they have to contest with this in addition to everything else. They're going to have to commit a reasonable amount of resources to be able to take this out, but then being able to stare down an Apex Avian, it is going to be hard for them to come back. We also have 3 copies of Gamma. Gamma's really cool in this deck because Fractal typically wants to be activated from the hand, and if you do that first thing before you commit to any monsters on the field, you can actually protect your Fractal from stuff like Ash Blossom with Gamma, so this is really nice interaction. It's also good because they can catch them off guard with like tanky activations, and there's also ways to get them with Droll as well, so Gamma's actually very good for insulating your plays and ensuring that they're going to go through. For the Tri-brigades, we have 3 Fractal, 2 Karis. Karis is in here as a nice little extender. You're able to special summon him by discarding another Beast Warrior Winged Beast monster, so depending on how you get interrupted by your opponent, you're able to bring out Karis, and then Karis can maybe pick up the job where one of the other Tri-brigades might have gotten stopped, and so he's good because you can pick him up off of something like Nerval or just, you know, any of the other cards in here. 2 copies of Kit. Kit can send any of the Tri-brigade cards to the graveyard. Notice how I said cards, not just monsters. You can actually send this copy of Rendezvous here. We'll talk about this in a little bit. And then 3 copies of Nerval. Nerval is so good in this deck because it's a level 1 winged beast, because not only can you search it off of Cobalt Sparrow, you can special summon it off of Sapphire Swallow, so you have plays for days. Super, super strong, and you'll get to see that in some of the combos at the end of the video. We have the 1 driver for the 3 Gammas, the 1 Call by the Grave just to give us a little bit more hand trap protection. This deck can be a little bit susceptible to stuff like Ash Blossom, so having this is pretty nice. 3 copies of Tenki for consistency. Foolish Burial because it basically gets us to where we want. Monster Reborn as another extender to help play through our opponent's disruption. And finally, 1 copy of Tri-brigade Rendezvous. Rendezvous is actually a very strong spell here because it has an engrave effect that says if a linked Beast Warrior Winged Beast monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. This means that mid-combo, thanks to Kit, you are able to send this card to the graveyard, and then it gives your barrier statue protection. There's other ways to protect it as well, but this is just one of the most simplest ways to do it, and then that way it makes it even more difficult for your opponent to out this card. For the extra deck, we have 1 copy of Zeus because we can actually make Zeus in this deck, which is crazy. It's great at equalizing the board. We can make that thanks to Lyrilusc Assembled Nightingale. Now, this is a rank 1 that requires 2 or more level 1 monsters, and similar to Zodiac Borbo, this can just attack your opponent directly, which is really all you're looking to do with it, so you can slap down a copy of Zeus. We also have 1 Lyrilusc Recital Starling. This is cool because anyone who remembers Spiral format remembers this card because you can actually search any level 1 winged beast with it, and we don't just have to go for DD Crow like we typically did in the Spiral combos. You have a lot more options in this deck to choose from. We have 1 Ancient Warrior's Oath Double Dragon Lords. This is cool because it's a nice bounce, and bouncing is actually pretty good in this particular format with Virtual World and the like running around. We have 1 copy of Appaloosa, just be able to set up and protect us from our opponent's threats. 1 copy of Harpy Conductor. The primary reason for this is to give us a winged beast if we have to hard make Bird of Sovereignty, so that's the main reason why this is here. 1 copy of, and I'm probably going to butcher the name of this, Racevulgar? I do not know how to say this. The Desperate Doom Eagle. That's what this card is. This is neat. It is a Link 3 that does require some wind monsters. Again, we can cheat it out, but also it has a quick effect that says you can target a monster in your opponent's graveyard, shuffle it into the deck. That's very strong in a format that has a lot of graveyard reliance when we're looking at Drytron, Virtual World, Eldritch. This card can be super, super clutch, so that's why we want to play it. We have Link Karibo. Link Karibo is actually pivotal for the combos with Barrier Statue of the Stormwind to protect our statue from getting run over in battle. We also have a copy of Almirage. Almirage is actually in here because of the inclusion of Kit. There are some combos that you'll end on Almirage instead of something like Link Karibo, since Kit is a level 2, but even so, it's still really nice because you have a little bit more protection for the barrier statue. Of course, we have the Cimoooooooo Bird of Sovereignty. We have 2 copies of Tri-brigade Farigite. This is the Link 2 that's going to pretty much be the centerpiece of all of our combos. 1 copy of Rugal, the Silver Sheller. This card doesn't come up too often, but it's okay in certain instances. And then we have 2 copies of Tri-brigade Shurag, the Ominous Omen. This card is crazy. When it's summoned, or if another Beast Warrior Winged Beast monster special summons summon to your field, you can banish cards on your opponent's field, and that is just crazy. Think about like Eldritch, and that way it tears up their inevitability because now they're not going to be generating advantage. This card is just nuts. Again, it's not really the centerpiece of a lot of combos, but it's a very nice card to go into and have at your disposal. Moving over to the side deck, I just had a few cards I wanted to quickly discuss that just weren't in the main deck. Dark Cimoooooooo's actually a pretty sweet target you can get off of Cimoooooooooo Bird of Sovereignty, and if you're going up against any sort of back row deck, instead of going into something like Barrier Statue, you can go into this instead, and your opponent isn't able to set cards because the last line of text here says your opponent cannot set any cards to the field. So you probably just win automatically if you summon this. We've got a Nibiru in here. We're actually going to showcase a combo that can play through a Nibiru, which is insane. Shoutouts to Yishan. Yishan was where I first saw this deck in the first place. I'll have a link down to his channel so you can see even more in-depth combos with this deck. I know you guys want to check that out. We have some of the other 3-ofs here in terms of Karis and Kit just in the side deck. We have Psyframe Lord Omega, which is a nice card you can make off of Gamma. I just have it here in the side for the time being because I'm not going to be showing it off in any combos. Downer Magician's a card you could play if you want to stack it on the Assembled Nightingale to give your Zeus like a 4th material, so that way you're able to then get 2 disruptions off of the Zeus potentially. 1-for-1's another spell you can play. It's a bit high investment at times, but it's another extender, which is really good. And then Tri-brigade Oath. There is a combo that allows you to send this off of Kit instead of something like Rendezvous, and the effect here says when it's in your graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a face-up spell or trap your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. Now, the thing is, you need to at least control a Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast in order to activate this, but being able to negate a spell or trap if you have that is huge, and again, the combo can get there. It is a little bit of a win-more combo, and a lot of things have to go right if you want to resolve it properly, which is why I just have it in the side deck. It's something you can consider, and I just didn't want to show it off for the purposes of this video because I think it's a little bit unnecessary. That's going to wrap it up for the deck profile portion of the video. Let's go ahead and head on over to solo mode and check out some combos. All right, you guys, so for this very first combo, all you need is a single copy of Fractal, and if you can find that, you're going to end on Cimoooooooooo plus Barrier Statue with protection, and you are going to be set. So you're going to start by activating the effect of Fractal. You're going to send him to the graveyard, and you're going to dump a copy of Nerval to the graveyard as well. That'll trigger the Nerval. Nerval can add a Tri-brigade monster to our deck to our hand, so we're going to get a copy of Kit. From there, we can normal summon the Kit, use Kit's effect to banish both the Fractal as well as the Nerval to cheat out a copy of Harpy Conductor. This is where the Conductor comes up because we need the Winged Beast to go into the Cimoooooooooo, and now we can link both that off as well as the Kit and go into our Cimoooooooooo. From here, that's going to trigger the effect of Kit, and we're going to dump a copy of Tri-brigade Rendezvous to the graveyard, and then during the end phase, we're going to get to special summon Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds, and now we have our opponent on lock. So you've got the protection from battle, you've got the protection from card effects, and again, your opponent's not able to special summon. Then if you're able to make it till the end of your opponent's turn, you can then bring out a copy of Mist Valley Apex Avian, and then you're pretty much going to be off to the races. Remember, that was just with a single card. You're going to have 4 other cards in your hand, plus a 5th one when you draw for turn on the next turn. That's crazy just off of a single Fractal. Now for the second combo, we're going to take it up a notch, and we're going to incorporate Turquoise Warbler here just to showcase how this deck functions. So again, we're going to start by activating the Fractal, and this time we're going to actually send a copy of the Cobalt Sparrow to the graveyard. So we're going to get that in there, and then once that's in the graveyard, we can just special summon the copy of Turquoise Warbler that's in our hand because we control no monsters, and now we're able to special summon from our graveyard a copy of Cobalt Sparrow since it was sent there from the Fractal. This will trigger the Cobalt Sparrow since it was special summon, and we can add a level 1 Winged Beast to our hand. In this case, we're going to get a copy of Sapphire Swallow. Now we're going to overlay both the Sparrow as well as the Warbler, and we're going to go into our copy of Recital Starling. Want to put that in defense. We can use the effect of this, get rid of the Warbler here, and we're then able to add the other combo piece that we need because we are missing a copy of Nerval. Again, the fact that this is a level 1 Winged Beast is crazy because that means it's searchable, so you're able to find the other half of the engine to make everything start working. From here, we can go ahead and special summon our copy of Sapphire Swallow since we control a Winged Beast, and that allows us to special summon out our copy of Nerval. We can now use this effect of Nerval here. We can banish both the Fractal as well as the Warbler and go into a copy of Farigite using the effect of Nerval. This is our opponent's last opportunity to use Nibiru because we're going to be going into Appaloosa next. So from here, we're going to link off the Farigite, we're going to get rid of the Nerval as well as the Recital Starling, and we're going to go into a copy of Appaloosa for 3. So that's 3 effect negations on the Appaloosa. We're going to have some chain links now. So Farigite has an effect that we can draw a card and place a card on the bottom of our deck. It just cycles a card, so we're not gaining any advantage really, but we do get to trigger the Nerval, which is a plus, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to get a copy of Kit from our deck. We can then go ahead and normal summon this copy of Kit. We can actually use this copy of Sapphire Swallow to link into a copy of Linkuriboh. We are going to want to do that to protect our barrier statue, and now we're going to be able to use the Kit's effect to banish 3 of our monsters. We're going to get rid of the Farigite, we're going to get rid of the Recital Starling, and we're going to get rid of the Sapphire Swallow. Wanting to keep Cobalt Sparrow as well as Nerval in grave is pretty good, because then that means we have follow-up plays potentially on the next turn, and that allows us to access our Cimoooooooo, Bird of Sovereignty, and then if we go to our end phase from here, we can then grab our barrier statue, and our opponent is going to be locked. So this is the end board when it's all said and done, and this is pretty threatening. I mean, we went +3 in terms of card advantage. We've got some nice setup in the graveyard with both Cobalt Sparrow as well as Nerval. We have the ability to negate 3 of our opponent's monster effects while they're locked out of special summoning thanks to the barrier statue. Linkuriboh can protect the statue from getting hit in battle, and then if our opponent can't out the Cimoooooooo, then during their end phase, we get to summon Apex Avian from our deck, and we're probably just going to win the game next turn. There's so much follow-up here, and again, that's just off of 2 cards. We're going to have 3 other cards in hand. Maybe it's hand traps, maybe it's extenders to allow us to play through our opponent's interruption. That's not bad. All right, you guys, so for the final combo, I wanted to demonstrate how this deck can play through Nibiru. As you can see, I rewinded the board state a little bit back to the point where our opponent could last Nibiru us, and so instead of going to Appaloosa, we're going to assume that we get hit with the Nibiru here. So we're going to lose everything on our field, and we are going to get ourselves a token. So we are still going to get to trigger the effect of Nerval here, and that is very important because remember, if you've been paying close attention, we actually have not yet used our normal summon, and this is where Kit is going to come in quite handy here. So since we haven't normal summoned yet, we're going to go ahead and do that. We're then going to have to banish a lot of monsters out of our graveyard, but it's okay. I think we're going to go ahead and keep the Nerval in this case, but we're going to banish 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to bring out the Ominous Omen Shurag. Now, when he is special summoned, we can banish the opposing Nibiru, so since I changed control of it, I can't actually banish it at this point, but imagine that it's no longer on the field. We can then take both the Ominous Omen as well as Kit and go into a second copy of Farigite. Now, this is going to start another new chain link here because we're going to have 2 triggers. We're going to have Kit's trigger, which allows us to send any Tri-brigade card to the graveyard, but we can also use Ominous Omen, who has an effect that when he's sent to the graveyard, we are able to add a Beast Warrior Winged Beast monster from our deck to our hand, whose levels is less than or equal to the number of your banished Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast. So we've got a lot of those, so we've got some options here. So what we're going to do is we're going to send off of the Kit, we can send the Rendezvous, and then we're going to add a copy of Fractal here. Next, we're going to go ahead and use the effect of Farigite. Farigite has an effect that reads, during your main phase, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Beast Warrior Winged Beast monster from your hand. So we can go ahead and bring out a copy of Fractal here, and with Fractal, we can now use his effect, banish the remaining monsters we have in our graveyard, and this is going to get us to, you know what, it is Cimoooooooo, Bird of Sovereignty. So just like that, we were actually still able, through Nibiru, to get to the lock. During the end phase, we'll go ahead and fetch ourselves a barrier statue here, and what's even better is that thanks to now Kit, we are able to send the Rendezvous to the graveyard, so even though we don't have the Linkuriboh, we actually have protection for the barrier statue in addition to everything else, which means it's going to be very difficult for our opponent to recover and be able to get through this board. And even if they can, we've got this big Nibiru here, we've got the Farigite, we've got the Fractal. I mean, they still have to deal with the Sovereignty as well. If they don't, we're going to get the Apex Avian during their end phase. It just spirals out of hand very quickly. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I think this deck is fantastic, and you really should give it a shot because it is a ton of fun. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon for exclusive early one-day access to both the Yu-Gi-Oh progression series and the history of Yu-Gi-Oh. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.